Today I'll be talking about AAC for persons with developmental disability. So what is developmental disability? Developmental delay is basically an umbrella term that covers a group of conditions due to impairments in the areas of physical learning, language, and behavioral development. Symptoms can include slower than normal development, such as motor, cognitive, and social and emotional skills, and treatment usually includes occupational therapy, speech therapy, and physical therapy services. So now we have some examples of developmental delay. We have cerebral palsy, which is a permanent movement disorder, usually appearing in early childhood, and it's caused by brain development issues. We have intellectual disability, which causes limitations on intellectual function and adaptive behavior, and it usually originates before the age of 18. We have autism, which is a developmental disorder, and it usually affects communication and behavior, and is usually apparent by 2. We have Down syndrome, which is a genetic disorder that is due to an extra chromosome on chromosome 21. Finally, we have Rett syndrome, which is a rare genetic disorder affecting brain development. But obviously, this is not comprehensive of every developmental delay category. This is just a couple of examples. And so why do we need AAC for this population? Like, why is AAC relevant to this population? And so AAC devices basically for this population enhance communication, facilitate social interactions, and are going to generally improve quality of life. So how does AAC enhance communication? So this population of individuals with disabilities, with developmental delay and intellectual disabilities is extremely heterogeneous, meaning that there's a lot of different ways that it can present itself. And because of that, it's highly variable. And this makes it really difficult to generalize about their language abilities. Additionally, given the wide range of abilities and needs of the population, AAC systems basically provide a range of communication modalities to suit the individual's specific preferences, needs, cognitive levels, communication goals, and therefore it addresses this high variability within this population. In children with developmental delay, there's an obvious and notable reduction within the quantity of language production as well as the quality of language production. And what happens is that individuals with developmental delays tend to their language tends to resemble language abilities of a child that is chronologically younger than they are. And what happens is that this results in shorter sentences, less sophisticated grammatical structures, and a less diverse vocabulary. And what the AAC devices can do is basically supplement language by enabling them to construct more complex sentences, expand their vocabulary beyond what they can express just verbally. And this can include the use of like pre-programmed phrases, customizable vocabulary sets, dynamic screams that adapt to the context of the conversation. So all of these new things basically enhance the quantity and quality of people with developmental delays, like communication. Additionally, persons with developmental delay can also have impaired speech intelligibility, and actually they usually present with stronger receptive abilities than expressive abilities. And so basically the AAC device can produce clear, understandable speech output, which allows these individuals to communicate effectively with others, and really targets that impaired speech intelligibility. Additionally, when we have the visual supports that the AAC tools provide, it usually supports comprehension and basically helps them process information at their own pace and really takes advantage of their stronger receptive abilities. And so AAC devices can also help with social interactions and quality of life. And the first reason is that communication frustrations often lead to behavioral issues for individuals with developmental delay, because they can't communicate, they're frustrated, and there we have behavior. But what happens is that by providing a reliable way to communicate, AAC can reduce these frustrations associated with behavioral problems and facilitate more positive interactions. If you can communicate your thoughts and feelings, you're more likely to be able to de-escalate yourself. Additionally, like we stated before, individuals with developmental delay can have difficulty showing their personality and therefore difficulty expressing themselves and building effective relationships. And so what happens is that the AAC device provides opportunities for these individuals to demonstrate their affection, humor, sociability, and this enriches their relationships with their family, friends, and the community. Because they're able to express themselves, they're able to show who they are, they basically are able to create a bond with people within their lives. So now that we talked about the different ways that AAC can support people with developmental delay, I wanted to take a second to talk about the types of AAC devices that are available for individuals with developmental delay. We have our low-tech device, and then we have our high-tech device. And so our low-tech devices include things like picture boards, communication books, and then our high-tech devices include things like speech-generating devices and tablet apps. We also have things like visual scene displays within these technologies. And this is basically an AAC device that incorporates real-life images. And this is really great for pre-literate children because it represents real-life scenes. And sometimes it can be really hard for children to understand that this playground that they're going to every day is this tiny little icon that doesn't look like the playground that they go to. So having the actual picture helps them understand better. Next, we have grid displays, and grid displays basically organizes symbols or buttons into like a systematic way, so that we can, in a systematic grid-like way, so that it's easier for our brains to remember where things are. We have symbolic versus non-symbolic, and basically symbolic means that it's a symbol of what we're talking about, and non-symbolic can be things like a gesture or a vocalization, facial expression as a way to communicate. Now that you've gotten kind of a general overview of all the different types of devices that we can have, let's look specifically at low-tech devices. First on the list of low-tech devices, we have the Picture Exchange Communication System, or PECS. PECS involves physical cards with pictures or symbols representing objects, actions, or concepts. The system basically teaches individuals to communicate by handing a picture to their communication partner. And this is really great for beginners in AAC or people who prefer tangible means of communication. And this is one of the big ones that we use with children with developmental delay. Next, we have communication boards. These are boards or books containing symbols, pictures, or words that the user can point to for communication. So the communication boards can be customized to include specific vocabulary that are needed by the user, or it can range from basic needs to more complex language structures. Next, we have visual schedules and social stories. And I know that we don't really think of these as low-tech AAC devices, but they're really hard because it's a representation of what they're trying to communicate. These tools will help individuals to understand and navigate daily routines and social situations, and the visual schedule really helps them understand what's going to happen through the use of pictures to represent the steps of an activity or an event during the day. And social stories obviously help provide a narrative to explain some of the social norms and behaviors. All right, now that we talked about some of the low-tech stuff, let's talk about some of the high-tech stuff, which is really what the meat of what we're trying to talk about is. So first, we have the speech generating device, or CGDs. These devices range from simple one-message communicators to whole complex systems capable of generating a wide range of speech outputs. SGDs can be programmed with personal vocabulary sets and may include features like text-to-speech technology or customizable grid layouts, and it basically has the ability to store multiple pages of communication content. Next, we have the tablet-based AAC device, or it's basically apps that you use on a tablet. It's basically apps that can be it's basically AAC apps that are on a tablet. tablets such as iPads can be equipped with AAC apps that transform into like versatile communication tools. These can be things like Prologue Q2Go or Touch Chat HD, and we have Lamp Words for Life, and these offer a lot of customizable interfaces, and they have both grid displays or VSDs, and they support language development in a lot of different contexts. Third is our most advanced, which is the eye gaze system, and it's usually limited for individuals with limited motor abilities, and sometimes with developmental delay, it can also come in conjunction with motor abilities. And so the eye gaze technology allows users to select items on the screen by looking at them, and systems like Tobii, Dynavox, which we're going to talk about later, and GridPad offer eye gaze compatible devices that enable users with severe physical disabilities to communicate effectively. All right, so now that we know what all of the types of devices there are, it's like, how are we going to take this and implement it to our children with developmental delay? So the first part is really the comprehensive evaluation. So the assessment portion, we really need to take a comprehensive evaluation. And not only are we looking at just the speech portions, we're really looking at the motor needs, the cognitive ability, and also the social emotional factors, so that we can really look at the child holistically. Next, we want to have a personalized approach. We want to select and customize to match the communication intent of that individual. What are we really looking at when we are wanting this child to communicate, this child with developmental delay? Another thing is a consideration for symbolic communication. And so we want to see, does this child understand symbols as a means of representing real life? Like if he saw a picture of a rose, would he understand that that picture of a rose is an actual rose? Or if he saw a picture of a cookie, does he understand that that means an actual cookie? And so if they don't have those things connect, then we obviously can't use symbols within our AAC, or prior to putting symbols in, we need to teach that. And so then we have the engagement of key stakeholders, and this can be family members, communication partners, because these are the people that this child or this person with developmental delay is going to need to communicate with. And so making sure that those people are involved and understanding how this AAC device is going to support them is going to be crucial. So now that we assess them, what are the approaches that we can do to implement this AAC device for individuals with developmental delay? The first is the lifespan intervention approach. Most people with developmental delay are really looking at AAC devices from a young age into adulthood. And so we want to make sure that our strategies and tools are matching the needs of the client as they progress through life. But not only the changes that they need during this moment, but the skills that they'll need to have access to the devices that they'll need later on. So for example, we want to make sure we don't want to just stick to the visual scene device, because we know that eventually they're going to need to get to the symbols portion. And so we are projecting and thinking ahead before and planning our intervention. Next, we have the multimodal communication approach, which is blending of the AAC tools. And this could be things like low tech plus high tech. For example, let's say we have a child who does water sports, and so he needs to have a low-tech device for that activity, but he also needs to have a high-tech device to communicate in their regular lives. And then in conjunction with a low-tech plus high-tech, we're combining natural forms of communication, such as smiling and gesturing, so that the child is able to have all of these ways that they can communicate if they need to. Next, we can't just think about these approaches. We have to think about, how are we going to make sure that this child is continuing to progress? And so we need to have ongoing monitoring and support to re-examine if this system right now is the best system for this child, or do we need to update? And so now that we learn a little bit about the AAC devices and how they support individuals with developmental delay, I wanted to talk to you about a specific case study and her name is Casey. So first is the situation. The situation is that Casey is a 19-year-old with Down syndrome, and she is experiencing significant communication challenges due to her reduced intelligibility. And basically, because she has reduced intelligibility, she requires AAC devices to communicate effectively with her family, friends, and the rest of her community. Background is that she's extremely social. She enjoys and participates in performing arts, and she lives with housemates. The living with housemates is important because we are going to eventually think about who her communication partners are. She's had an AAC device since the age of 4. She started with the I'm never going to be able to pronounce this, the Prenke-Romic Springboard low voice output system with a 36 button grid, and then she progressed to the Prolo-Quo 2 Go on the iPhone 7 Plus and the iPad. And so she has dual methods of communicating. And she uses core and fringe vocabulary and short phrases and quick messages to communicate. The assessment is that she currently has a lot of strong communicative intent. So she really wants to communicate, and she frequently seeks out to engage with peers and community members. And but the situation is that, the assessment is that her intelligibility is low, and because of that, people have a hard time understanding her, especially unfamiliar listeners. And because people can't understand her, she wants to use her AAC device, but her AAC system has limitations in pacing. And so she can't communicate fast enough, and basically this affects her communication speed. And so using pre-programmed phrases has been helpful in promoting her social interactions. So what are the recommendations based on this? The recommendations is to continue monitoring and customizing her communication device so that it is better suited for her needs. And next would be to teaching her communication partners how to best communicate with her. And another recommendation would be the exploration of new technologies. So we have the device that we have right now, but maybe we should think about something that's generative, so that she's able to keep up with the communication speed that she needs to have in order to be an effective communicator. Now that you've been exposed to AAC devices, the types of devices that are available for individuals with developmental delay, and we explored a case study like Casey, I wanted to give you a question for you to think about so that you can better prepare yourself for an instance such as this one. So the question is, how can we ensure that AAC systems evolve alongside the changing needs and environments of individuals with developmental disabilities, as illustrated by Casey's case? So in other words, how can we ensure that the AAC systems are actually progressing to the needs that our children with developmental delay are going to face? So the learning activity that I thought would be great for this is basically to create a developmental timeline for an individual similar to Casey. And so we're starting to look at early childhood through adulthood, and we're thinking about what is she going to do at the beginning of her AAC journey, and what are we hoping for at the end of her AAC journey and beyond. And so we can look at things like, we're going to start with a low-tech device, and then we're going to look at a mid-tech device, and then we'll look at the high-tech device. So maybe we'll start with like a picture exchange system, and moving on to a more advanced iPad system so that they are being effective communicators. And I think that this will be really helpful for individuals or future SLPs, because this basically will help you think and promote long-term planning. You're really thinking ahead about what this person will need, and not just focusing on what this person needs right now. And by doing so, you're basically practicing a holistic view of the individual, because we're looking at the person as a whole, not just as a whole in terms of who they will be in the future, as well as who they are right now. And finally, it really emphasizes individual care. We're not just looking at, I know what just a cookie cutter approach to this person, but we're really thinking about what is the abilities of this person and what can we look like, what can that person's future really look like. And so I think this learning activity will help you think about these concepts. I also wanted to show you some research that I did on the side for a specific device, and that specific device is a Tobii Dynavox, and this is an eye gaze technology. It's a window-based device, so you can't really have it on the iPad, and it's a symbol-based system. So if the child doesn't have symbols down yet, so we would need to target that first. It has both the symbol sticks and the picture communication symbols, or the PCS, and it can run core vocabulary software types such as Snapseed, which is a program that allows you to take a photo and tag it with recordings to let your child communicate on the fly. And then we have Grid 3, and it comes in screen sizes 12 inches or 15 inches. Some of the cool features of this device is the IFX, and this is a really good starting point for eye gaze users because it has this like foundational software that's like specifically designed for beginners in eye gaze technology, and it does that by emphasizing like engaging activities that are used to develop initial eye movement tracking and selection. Another cool feature is a look to learn, and this is another eye gaze software package, and it basically has a bunch of fun and interactive activities designed to develop and improve eye gaze skills. The last one is the All Literacy Program, or the Accessible Literacy Learning Program. And this is evidence-based reading program developed to teach basic reading skills to nonverbal individuals and those with disabilities, because we know that when you're not communicating, that is also impacting your ability to learn to read. And it basically uses technologies and adaptive methods to accommodate, various physical and cognitive abilities, and helps with phonological awareness, letter sound correspondence, and all of those components that are involved in learning to read. All right, so these are my references that I used to create this presentation. Most of my information was derived from Chapter 19, so if you want more information or you want to review, check out Chapter 19. All right, and that's my presentation. Bye.